Good afternoon, guys. Bill McMillan here with NDWX.com. A beautiful Saturday afternoon underway. 40-degree weather has never felt so nice. We've got partly cloudy conditions in place right now, and feels downright balmy out there after just the frigid conditions that we've been dealing with over the past several weeks. So we will certainly take the sunshine and the 40-degree type weather now that we've got it. This has also got to be just a beautiful sight for most of you. We're taking a look at the latest 12Z GFS Ensemble temperature anomaly forecast here, and it really paints an entirely different picture from what we've been dealing with over the past, what seems like roughly month and a half or so, where it's just been one shot after another of bitterly cold conditions into our part of the country and obviously into the Northeast. We flip the script, so to speak, here and go into a milder pattern, one that's going to be very, very nice, we think, by the middle part of the upcoming work week. No doubt, in the short term, we're dealing with a much more, let's just call it a calmer weather pattern. Quiet conditions overall with moderating temperatures, still colder than normal this weekend, but we think as we go into the middle part of the upcoming week, we're going to go well above normal, and many locations, most likely, will go above 60 degrees by the middle of the week, Wednesday and Thursday in particular. That said, we just don't think this is going to hold just yet. We really think we've got probably one or two more kind of long periods of nasty, cold, rainy, potentially wintry conditions ahead of us before we really pull out of this pattern and go into much more of a prolonged spring-type weather pattern. That may not come until the early to middle part of April. But for the short term, again, a milder pattern, one that's going to be very, very pleasant around here by the middle of the week. Now, what we're looking at right now is our GFS Ensemble upper air pattern for the latter part of March, in particular March 23rd. And this really does begin to raise an eyebrow, so to speak, for anyone who may think that we're going into a long-term spring type pattern without any more wintry conditions in play. When you see the high latitude blocking here, such as the GFS ensembles are showing, and also to some extent the European ensembles, the European weeklies, by the way, came out on Thursday, and certainly have more challenging conditions in front of us as we go through probably the last, let's say, 7 to 10 days of March into the first couple of days of April. I think that's going to be another wintry stretch for us, relatively, of course, in relative terms. It's not going to be as cold as what we just came out of. But when you factor in, that the normal weather conditions are certainly heading in more of a spring-like regime, it is going to probably be a shock to the system in some aspects as we go in through probably late March into the first few days of April. That's the way we see things playing out right now. When you get this blocking in place, it definitely raises an eyebrow for any sort of long-lasting, sustained warmth over our portion of the country. And again, most of the long-term data is showing something similar to this. Additionally, the other concern here is our forecast NAO. And both the NAO and the AO, we've been talking about this in some posts over the past few days, are both trending in a negative direction as we go into the middle portion of March. Again, you really have to pay attention to these teleconnections this time of year, as they can certainly suggest either warmer or colder than normal times. They're a big factor in our overall weather pattern when you go into March and April. Should this go negative, such as the forecast models are suggesting right now, then you have to be concerned about this colder than normal pattern continuing into early and mid-April. That's something that we're definitely going to keep a close eye on. As it is right now, again, in the short term, we've got a situation here where it's a milder and quiet weather pattern. Certainly not complaining about that. I know you're probably not either. But as we go into the latter portion of the work week upcoming and on into the weekend, forecast models are really struggling to handle a storm system that's actually going to come out of the Gulf of Mexico, and the GFS really wants to really lift this storm system more in a northerly direction. The Canadian is much more, let's just call it suppressed, really doesn't get too excited about bringing the moisture too far north and holds a lot of it back across the southern plains region and the Mid-South. I think the GFS has actually got a pretty good handle on things, and we're really going to keep an eye on Friday into Saturday for a very wet and potentially windy regime here as we go in through the course of time. Again, Friday into Saturday rainfall amounts could be hefty. Right now we're calling it probably a ½ inch to an inch in that time period. Some of the data would suggest much more than that. Obviously some other data would suggest much less. So something just to keep an eye on. As we go to your forecast though here, again, in the short term, very quiet conditions, pleasant conditions, still colder than normal, but nothing like we've been dealing with. I think anyone would take lower 40s now after the frigid stretch that we've been dealing with. Mid 40s to upper 40s the early portion of the work week, and then we think lower to middle 50s Wednesday a good bet, upper 50s, lower 60s a good bet on Thursday before the rain moves in, and cooler times ahead probably for Friday. Guys, we appreciate you logging on as always. Thank you very much for your support. Have a great weekend. We'll talk with you soon here on NDWX.com.